In modern science, as I said, Einstein's major discovery was this connection between space and time. So if we talk to any physicist, they will hardly accept this idea of how space modify how time runs in that particular environment. The Puranas speak about time dilation. There is the Brahmanda in which we are living, and in Brahmanda, 14 different planetary systems or 14 lokas. There's a Brahma Loka which is on the top, and we are in the middle in the 7th Loka, the Bhuloka. Time runs way slowly on Brahma Loka, so much so that a day there is equal to billions of years here on the earth. Now, in earth also is a very small portion of the whole Bhuloka. So what our proposition is that the time travels differently in these different realms. Thank you, friends, for joining us on this session titled What NASA Can Learn from the Vedas. You must be laughing I have chosen such a crazy title, but there is a reason behind it. Well, first of all, before I tell you the reason, I want to thank Sangam Talks for giving me this opportunity to present some of my research based on the Puranas in front of you guys here today. So the title is What NASA Can Learn from the Vedas. But before we go into that direction, I would like to show you this slide and ask you this question. What Muslims didn't accomplish in 1,000 years, the Britishers accomplished in 150 years. What is that? What they were able to accomplish was they were able to break the faith of the Indians or the people who are living on this side of the Sindh River, Hindus, in their scriptures, in their Vedic textbooks. In last 150 years or in the 150-year rule of Britishers, they broke the foundation. They destroyed the foundation of Vedic culture by displacing people's faith from scripture to modern world, modern science. And the root of this was laid by the education policy, which was launched in 1835 by James Mill. He said the Puranas and Vedas are basically a mass of fable. They are fiction. They are completely absurd. Many of these Western historians, they laughed, they mocked at the numbers which are given in these books. Is that a billion numbers? A million-year-old cycle? How can that be possible? So seeing that, the Hindus who are, or the common men in India who didn't have yet an idea of what wisdom is hidden in what scientific wisdom is also hidden in these books, they also started to doubt. And since then, James Mill, because he laid out the education policy, which laid out the policies for the training of civil servants, who are the people behind creating our textbooks for the masses in India, the result is that now there's only a very significant portion of Indians or Hindus who know these scriptures and who study them. I am myself was a student of computer science. I'm by training a computer scientist, a data scientist, trained in USA. But in my life, an event happened which made me turn around and look back at these Vedic textbooks, which is why I'm here in front of you talking about it. That person was His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. At the age of 70, he came to the West and he presented to the whole world. He gave to the whole world as a gift, just like the sadhus do. They give a gift. He gave the world a gift of Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Purana. And Bhagavad Purana is considered the sun in this dark age of Kali. It is self-same as Krishna. So one verse in this textbook, Bhagavad Purana goes like this, 1.3.41. Tadidam gayam asha sutam atmavatam varam satva veda ithasanam saram samuditam. Srila Vyasadeva delivered it to his son, who is the most respected among the self-realized, after extracting the cream of all Vedic literatures and the histories of the universe. So I mentioned at the beginning of my talk what NASA can learn from the Vedas. The Vedas are huge. What can we learn from? So the Vedas have been compressed, and the cream of that dense Vedic milk is the Puranas. And it is said by Srila Vyasadeva himself. So there are many Puranas, and among them there are 18 Mahapuranas. And among those 18 Mahapuranas, the last And the most dear one to Vyasadeva is Srimad Bhagavata Purana. And in the Srimad Bhagavata Purana, the history of the universe, this solar system, and the earth has been given in extreme amount of detail, which is what I'm going to today talk about in my presentation. So here, our teacher, Srila Prabhupada, who translated these books, he says in the purport, what does he say? Men with a poor fund of knowledge only accept the history of the world from the time of Buddha, or since 600 BC. And prior to this period, all histories mentioned in the scriptures are calculated by them to be only imaginary stories. In other words, common men or people who have faith in the modern scientific world, they reject anything earlier than 600 BC and they consider it only as folk stories. Whereas Vyasadeva and our teacher Prabhupada writes, this is not a fact. All the stories mentioned in the Puranas and Mahabharata, and I may add Vedas, etc., are actual histories, not only of this planet, but also of millions of other planets within the universe. So, here we are making a very big and very extraordinary claim. What are we saying? We are saying that the Puranas and the Itihasas, they have actual history of this universe, of this world, and not only this earth, but of other planets too. How can we have such an audacity to make such a big claim? This claim would be supported in my presentation. This extraordinary claim would be supported in my presentation with extraordinary evidence. We will show in my presentation how modern science is actually catching up with these ancient Puranas. Carl Sagan said in one of his famous talks, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Our claim is that these books, which are by any modern historian perspective only 1,000-year old, written in Sanskrit, they actually are not 1,000-year old. They're actually billions of years old. They're actually eternal textbooks. So these are extraordinary claims. What evidence do we have? Well, evidence is that the history of the earth and the solar system and the universe, which is given in these books, is so precise that only in last few years, the most modern and the most scientific and rigorous and most expensive instruments have come to accept these very findings. I'm going to share with you some very precise measurements coming from the Puranas, which can't be explained by coincidence, which can't be a big brushstroke, but very precise and fine findings from the Puranas, which support the extraordinary claim which I made earlier in the presentation. So, before we can jump into it, we need to train our audience, you, in the basics of Puranic timekeeping. So, the Puranic timekeeping is based on this principle that not everything has to be recorded in these books, but only significant events are to be recorded. That is why in these Puranas, you won't find every Tom, Dick, and Harry who passed away and their genealogical chart, but only people and only events which significantly change the course of history are recorded in these books. So they use a method of timekeeping which can accommodate larger time scales. What are those time scales? Well, it starts with Yugas. Yugas are basically like seasons in the cosmos, just like you have winter, summer, rainy season. Similarly, there are 4 different types of yugas. There is Satya Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, Treta Yuga, and Kali Yuga. The Kali Yuga is known as Iron Age, Dwapar Bronze, Treta Silver, and Satya Golden Age. And they follow one after the other. So a combination of Kali Yuga, Satya Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, and Treta Yuga makes one Chatur Yuga or a Divya Yuga. 71 of these Chatur Yugas or Divya Yugas make a Manvantar. Manvantar is another bigger time unit which incorporates 71 of these cycles. Then the 14 of these Manvantaras make one Kalpa. So prior to my teams or my study of this topic, these details were very roughly studied. So we were able to, in our research, find that actually there is a period known as Sandhya. It's like between day and night, there's this evening period called Sandhya. In the morning, there is the dawn. So similarly, there is also a Sandhya between these time periods, which were prior to our study not discovered. And that is why these correlations or these coincidences, which these concordances, which I'm going to discuss today in my presentation, they were not discovered before. So between every kalpa, there is a sandhya known as prati sandhya, which is which is equal to a size of a manvantara. These are finer details which you can find in the book later, but I'm just giving you a broader timeline. We are going to talk about these Puranic time units, but more than that, in my research or in my study of these Puranas, I found that there were two things which were missing. One, the sandhya periods between the kalpas, which were not discussed before by anybody else. And second, there's another important aspect. It is about time difference or time dilation. It's not a concept which we are foreign to. It is used every day. Each time you drive a car, you're using a GPS, which is working with a satellite which is very far away from the Earth, and that has to use a time dilation correction for it to work. Similarly, the Puranas speak about time dilation. There is the Brahmanda in which we are living, and in Brahmanda there are 14 different planetary systems or 14 lokas. There's a Brahma Loka which is on the top, and we are in the middle, in the 7th Loka, the Bhuloka. Time runs way slowly on Brahma Loka than us. So much so that a day there is equal to billions of years here on the Earth. Now, in Earth also is a very small portion of the whole Bhuloka. So what our proposition is that the time travels differently in these different realms. And this connection between space and time has already been established. In modern science, as I said, Einstein's major discovery was this connection between space and time. So if we talk to any physicist, they will hardly accept this idea of how space can modify how time runs in that particular environment. And as I mentioned before, this can also be seen in the form of a clock. If you have a clock running on the Earth, and whereas a clock which is very far away from the Earth, because the gravitational pull is quite slow, time runs a little slower when the gravitational pull is slow. And there are many other ways by which time can be modified, but the modern scientists only know of two things. Only know of two ways, of many ways in which time can be modified. One, if something is traveling at the speed of light, or two, if you're in a zone where there is a very heavy gravitational pull. In the Puranas, we hear the story of King Kukudmi. King Kukudmi one time wanted to marry his daughter. So he went from Bhuloka to Brahma's planet. And there he said to Brahma, Brahma, I'm worried. I want to find the best match for my daughter. Can you please help me? Brahma said, okay, I will help you, but give me a minute. So King Kukudmi waited for Brahma to finish up his work, and then Kukudmi met Brahma, and Kukudmi showed him the list of prospective boys. He said, what do you think for my daughter Revati? Who's better? This person, this boy, that boy? You know, it's a common thing. All the fathers, they're concerned. They want their daughter to be married to the best bridegroom possible. So he gave the whole list. And Brahma started laughing. So, what is this list? All these people you're talking about, all these boys you're talking about, they have already passed away. A minute on Brahma Loka is equal to millions of years on the Bhuloka. So their generations have been finished. Their sons, grandsons, they all have already passed away. But I know whom you can marry your daughter to. In fact, I have the best match a girl can ever find in the whole universe. Who is that? The best match for your daughter Revati is Balaramji. So you should go down to the earth right now, and Balaramji is right now doing his Leela with Krishna, and you should give your daughter Revati to Balaram. Actually, Revati and Balaram are eternally connected. So this is part of the Leela. So he came down, millions of years have passed, and he gave his daughter Revati to Balaram. So this is one story from the Bhagavata which explains the idea of, or which hints the idea of time dilation. So our proposition, or my proposition here is that the time which is recorded in the Puranas, actually it is recording the time at the level of Bhuloka or Bhumandala. Whereas Earth is a very small aspect, a three-dimensional aspect of the higher dimensional Bhumandala. Bhumandala, as we hear from the Puranas, have so many different mountains made of gold, and we don't find any of that here. Where is that? And the breadth and the descriptions are way far out than what we can accommodate in our earth. So our proposition is that the time runs, at half the speed on the Bhumandala compared to the earth, which means any dates which we find from the Puranas, if we want to compare them to the modern dates, then we need to multiply them by the factor of 2. Now people who are skeptical, they will say, oh no, you are trying to fit things together. Okay, for you guys, you keep the factor of 2 out and you just see the dates together, and then you can make a decision yourself what you think of my findings based on the Puranas. But for those who have some faith, accept this factor of 2 and see the magic which we will show. So now that you know this basic time units, let us look into some facts given in the Puranas. We will start with an event which happened very close to us. The event is titled Earth's Greatest Mass Extinction. I'm sure you hear about mass extinction all the time. Right now we are going through one because so many species are going extinct. There is such a big rise in pollution. Some people say that it's becoming hotter and hotter by the day on the earth. So we are losing a lot of our flora and fauna. They call it a minor mass extinction. But my dear friends, our earth has gone through a number of different major mass extinctions where practically the whole painting of the earth was destroyed and painted from the scratch. So there was one which is considered the biggest one. When did that happen? Well, before I tell you what did scientists say, what did the Puranas say about mass extinction? So in the Puranas we hear the concept of Pralaya. Pralaya has the same meaning as extinction. Extinction means removal of major amounts of flora and fauna species. Pralaya implies the same thing as a great catastrophe which causes destruction and passing away of large number of animals and people. So as per the Puranas, Bhagavata Purana and other Puranas, the most significant Pralaya which has happened in the history of the earth since the beginning of this day of Brahma is the Matsya Avatar Pralaya. During the Matsya Avatar Pralaya, what happened? King Satyavrata, he was meditating. He was praying to the Lord, oh Lord, I have become the king of this whole Bhuloka, but I feel in my heart some kind of discomfort. I feel something bad is about to happen. I'm sure many of you feel the same. When something bad is about to happen, we feel this, feeling in our heart, something telling us, oh, be prepared, be ready. So he was praying to the Lord, Lord, please give me the guidance, what I'm supposed to do in upcoming difficult times. And the Lord appeared to him and said, I will come to you pretty soon. And how he appeared that, there's a longer story behind it, which you can read in the Puranas. But the Lord told him that very soon there will be a Pralaya. And this Pralaya will be huge. And I would like you to get together few sages, some important herbs, and be ready to climb the ship which I will be leading or carrying forward through these difficult waters of the Pralaya. So the king got ready and was able to safeguard a few of the important men and important herbs for the next Manvantara, because this happened at the end of previous Manvantara. So right now we're in the 7th Manvantara as per the Puranas. It's called Vyasadeva Manvantara, and prior to that was Chakshusha Manvantara. So as you can see in the diagram, at the end of Chakshusha Manvantara is when this Pralaya happened, or this mass extinction happened. And if you do the simple calculation, you get a date for this Chakshusha Manvantara, for this end of Chakshusha Manvantara, or this Pralaya, somewhere between 253 to 246 million years ago. And as I was saying before, in the history of the earth also, a number of mass extinctions have happened. And the biggest one to the date was the End-Permian mass extinction. In this mass extinction, 90% of the aquatic species disappeared. And close to 70% living things on the earth, terrestrial species, they also disappeared. So it was really, really severe. I'm sure you all have heard of extinction of dinosaurs. This was more severe than that period. Dinosaurs disappeared 66 million years ago, but this one happened 252 million years ago, which is right in the middle of the period for Pralaya as described in the Puranas. Now, how it happened, or what were the different features of this Pralaya? We often hear there was a big flood. That is just, a simplistic way of telling what is given in the Puranas. The Puranas explained features such as big droughts, huge volcanoes, no rains, and wildfires and acidic oceans. And these are practically the same reasons which are given also by the modern scientists when they discuss or describe this phenomena. This discovery of End-Permian mass extinction was not an easy cakewalk for paleontologists. They had to work day and night for many, many decades. Each time you find a fossil, you have to date it based on the dirt or the era in which it was found. And it takes hours, hundreds of hours for dating each piece of fossil. And then when you combine all those fossils together, then you get a story. Oh, we see there are so many fossils being found up to this point in the history of the earth, and there's a big change after that. Oh, there must have been a significant event. And then they look at the specific depth of the earth and look for the signals or the signs of a possible mass extinction. And then after study and thorough analysis of number of different scientists, they come to a conclusion. So right now it is unanimously accepted that this was the biggest mass extinction in the history of the earth, and it was stated in the Puranas. Not only that, the Puranas also describe when it ends, because at the end of Chakshusha Manvantara there is a Pralaya, and then the Pralaya's symptoms or its the environmental conditions, they changed at the beginning of Vyasadeva Manvantara. So all in all, it took, as per the Puranas, about 7 to 10 million years, which is exactly the same period as proposed or as discovered by the scientists, paleontologists, which took for the earth to come back to its life, which took for the species to jump back to a period where they could again populate on the earth. So what can we say? We can say that the Puranas and the paleontologists, they agree very precisely about when the greatest mass extinction happened on the earth. Not only that, they also discuss how it happened and when it ended. And here we are not giving some rough numbers, we're giving very precise numbers from the Puranas. So this was about the greatest mass extinction. Let's go further back. What is the most significant event apart from mass extinction? Let me make a guess. It's the birth of the earth. If there's no earth, there's no life. When did our earth came around? Our earth came around at the same time as the birth of the sun. For the last hundreds of years, scientists have looked at the sun and wondered how old is our sun, and how long it will go. People worry, people who are having families, they worry, how long I have fuel left in my house, how long the fuel will go. Maybe I need to order another cylinder, maybe I need to put more gas in my car. Similarly, people have been wondering this question for a long time, that how long the sun will go. And given that the sun was born at the same time as the earth, how old is our earth? Professor Hans Bethe received Nobel Prize just for this understanding this aspect of the sun, that how does our sun produce energy. So a number of Nobel Prizes are connected to this question regarding how old is our earth and how old is our sun. But what does our Puranas say about that? Our Puranas have very easy to understand description of the birth of the sun or the birth of the earth. Puranas describe the Brahmaji, his day and night is equal to 1 kalpa each. At the end of Brahma's night, Brahma wakes up and he starts, he is Srishtikarta, he starts the construction of our solar system. Right now, we are halfway to Brahma's day. So if we go back that period of half a day, which is half a kalpa, then we get to the point where Brahma starts the construction of the solar system. So when did that happen? As per the Puranas, Brahma constructed this solar system 4.563 billion years ago. It's a very precise number based on the fact that we are right now in the 7th Manvantara, 6 Manvantaras have passed, and there was also a Manvantara before the beginning of this Kalpa. When you add these numbers up, you get a very precise number, 4.563 billion years. As I mentioned before, it is not an easy thing to date or to find out for the scientists how old is our sun, how old is our earth. It requires cooperation and teaming up of number of astrophysicists. As you can see in the video, that sun is born from coming together of a lot of hydroclouds which come together and due to the gravitational pull make a proto-sun, which is a bigger sun, and again to the gravitational pull they come together and they give birth to the sun. And as the sun is born, the sun throws out number of planetary bodies which revolve around the sun, and that is the birth of the sun and the earth. So if a scientist can find out the oldest rock possible on the earth, then they can find out how old is our earth. But how do you find out a rock which is old? I can give you two rocks in your hand. One rock could be a million-year old, another rock could be 1,000-year old. But just by looking at the eye, you can never tell which rock is older. It is not something which you can figure out by your plain senses. What you need is a $1 million machine to find out how old a piece of rock is. So number of scientists, they have been working on this for the last 100 plus years. They go around the world and they look for the oldest rocks. And the oldest rocks they have found up to right now in the solar system, they have dated it to be 4.567 billion years. And with that information, that the oldest rock or the age of the earth is 4.567 billion years, compare that to what is given in the Puranas, 4.563, we're coming to a very important point, that the earth or the sun which is described in the Puranas, the date for that is only 0.1% different from what is given by the modern scientist. What has taken scientists millions of dollars, hundreds of labs, thousands of scientists, thousands of publications, many Nobel Prizes, is stated plainly by Vyasadeva in the Puranas, with a difference of mere 0.1%. In fact, in the last 40 years, with every new scientific discovery by astrophysicists in this field of understanding the age of the earth, age of the sun, they have come closer and closer and closer to what is stated in the Puranas. 150 years ago, the Britishers, they mocked Indians for stating a billion-year-old earth or 4.5 billion-year-old earth. They said, are you crazy? As per our scriptures, the earth is only few thousand years old. This is all a scheming done by Brahmanas to rule over the other people in this, or to rule over other castes or other people in India. This is just a figment of mind. Well, they didn't know that the modern science was coming around to, in future, 150 years from now, to accept what we're discussing here. So they had no idea at all what they were thinking as fake or imagination would actually come out to be very precisely true and precisely concordant with the modern scientific findings. Not only that, the Puranas also describe what is the source of sun's energy. They describe how, so first of all, the modern scientists, they say that the sun produces energy because of a fusion process where the two hydrogen particles, due to gravitational pull, they come together and produce helium and other higher metals, and in that coming together of fusion, energy is released which produces the sun's light and heat. The Puranas also talk about a similar process, of course in Sanskrit words, and they talk about how in future, towards the end of the sun, the storage of hydrogen which is in the center of the sun will be finished, and then the sun will turn into a giant red ball which will start using a different process for energy production. This is exactly the same picture which is drawn by modern astrophysicists. They claim that in the next 4 to 7 billion years, our sun will run out of hydrogen in its core. There won't be any more gravitational pull, and then it will become a red giant and it will die soon after. Interestingly, the Puranas give a very precise date for the end of the sun. They state that the sun will die in or be finished in 4.69 billion years. Whereas the modern scientists, they right now are still trying to solve this puzzle to an exact number. As per their knowledge, in next 4 to 7 billion years, somehow or other, the sun will die. So, what can we come to understand from this? That Puranas and astrophysicists, they also coincide. They also agree about what is stated, what is understood about the history of the sun and the earth. So they agree when the sun was born very precisely. They also agree how the sun produces energy, and they also agree what will happen to sun in future. In fact, the Puranas are making a prediction which I can bet in near future will come to be accepted by modern scientists too, as they continue to do their scientific work. Now, let's go to the biggest discovery of my research. In my book, I discuss more than a dozen such points. However, the biggest one is now going further back, going to origin of the universe. Ever since a person is born, a person looks at the sky and wonders, when did this whole thing start? When did this whole sky came about? When did the stars came about? So, as per the Puranas or the sages who were asked the same questions, they explain that there is a constant cycle of destruction and construction, and destruction. At the end of every Manvantara, there is a Pralaya and things get replaced on the earth. At the end of every Kalpa, or there is a destruction of the solar system, and at the beginning of, at the end of Brahma's night, or the end of night Kalpa, there is a beginning of this the whole solar system. Similarly, there is another time period known as Prarartha. What is Prarartha? Prarartha is basically 50 years of Brahma. A Brahma's day is one Kalpa. 30 days make his month. 360 days makes it an year. So 50 such years is called Prarartha. And as per the Puranas, at the end of a Prarartha, there is the destruction of the whole universe and there is a reconstruction of the next universe. The elements themselves are set into destruction and then recreation, the basic elements. Interestingly, right now we are in the 51st year of Brahma. So we can all say, happy birthday to you, Lord Brahma. It is Lord Brahma's birthday. It's a long birthday because his birthday is, a day is a kalpa. So at the end of Brahma's 50 years, the whole universe was wiped out, including all the elements, and was restarted, and the work is done by Prakriti Devi because Brahma himself cannot do that. At the end of every at the end of every day of Brahma, Brahma goes to topmost planets and he waits for the night to finish. But at the end of 50 years, he cannot stay here because all the elements are getting destroyed. There's no Loka left for him to live. So he goes back into body of Mahavishnu and comes back again because he still has 50 more years to live. Brahma lives for 100 years. Since he has 50 more years to live, he comes back and he finds, oh, here I have a new universe to work with. So it is done by Prakriti Devi, who is the wife of Lord Shiva. And when did that happen? So as per the Puranas, right now as I mentioned, we're in the 51st year of Brahma. So right now we're in the day of Brahma, half a day has finished. Just before that, it was a Brahma's night. So about 1.5 kalpa ago, it's when all the elements of this universe were reconstructed. You add the numbers up and you get a date. What's the date? 13.81968 billion years. A very long but very precise number for the age of the universe. Now what do scientists say? This has been one of the most difficult problems for the cosmologists. For the longest time, cosmologists didn't want to accept God. So first they said there is no beginning at all to the universe. It has been an eternal universe. But lo and behold, some scientific discoveries created problem. Einstein also was gung-ho. Yeah, the universe is eternal. He wrote up some equations based on his observations and he changed the equation. Why? Just to make sure that the universe stays eternal as per his equations. But later, he apologized that he had added that constant factor just to kick away the point that there is a beginning to the universe. So, in early 1930s or 20s, Hubble made a telescope which was looking at the sky, and looking at the sky, it could see that all the galaxies are going further away from each other. If they were all eternal, they can't go further away from each other. There has to be a point where they all came from, where they all started from, a starting point. So that forced them to revise their equations. And yes, by the 50s and 60s, cosmologists started accepting that yes, there has been a birth event for our universe. It hasn't been in this state like this eternally. And then from 60s onwards, scientists started looking, hey, can we find a signature of the universe? Say, for the beginning of the sun, you could look for the oldest rock. But you can't find oldest rock for the beginning of the universe because there is no rock to begin with. There's no elements. How can you have rocks? So how do you date a universe? A very, very difficult problem. In 90s and late 2000s, scientists discovered a very interesting phenomena connected to the beginning of the universe or the birth of the universe. These are called cosmic microwave background radiations. These radiations were basically produced few 100 million years after the birth of the universe. And these signals or these waves are the thinnest or are the faintest vibrations present all around us. To study them, they made huge satellites. So there was a tussle or race between European Space Agency and NASA. Who can make the first satellite which can go out and measure these waves, and based on that come up with a signature for the beginning of the Earth and give a date. They both made satellites, spent millions and billions of dollars, and they came up with a number. And the number is 13.801 billion years. Remember, the date for the Puranas is 13.819, and the date from the modern scientists in year 2024 or year 2021 was 13.801. The difference is again less than 0.1%. So what billions of dollars, many satellites, and hundreds of scientists have put together is again plainly stated by Vyasadeva in the Puranas. Sometimes people come to us and say, hey, do you mean to say there was nothing before the beginning of the universe? Actually, that is not the opinion of the scientists, and it is neither the opinion of the Puranas. As per Puranas, there was a Brahma in this universe and the whole system there before the significant event which happened at the end of Prarartha. And as per scientists also, it was not necessarily a big bang. There's a group of scientists which proposed there was a big bounce. There was a universe before, and somehow it contracted to a singularity and it came back again, which is exactly what the Puranas state. There was a universe before. Prakriti Devi had to do a restart. She came and she sent Brahma away to Mahavishnu's body, and then the whole universe was reset. So what do we have? We have that the Puranas and cosmologists, they are agreeing to the decimal point that the universe began at this same point. However, some scientists also agree what was before the universe, and there is descriptions in my book which explain what are the significant events which happened after the beginning of the universe and how they match up with what is given in the Puranas. Due to paucity of time and this media, I'm not going into those details. Let us try to summarize what we have found. What we have found that the modern science is indeed catching up with the Vedas, and it is not just a rough coincidence or the rough matching up. It's a very stunning and very precise concordance between these two group of scholars, the Vedic scholars and the modern scientific scholars. So, as I said in the beginning of my presentation, that we're making an extraordinary claim that the Puranas and the Vedas have recorded very accurate and precise history of this Earth, solar system, and the universe. But do we have any evidence to support that? Yes, we have an astounding amount of evidence. And I would like to give the credit for this to my teacher, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who worked for many decades to give to us this gift of the Puranas in the English language. And credit goes to him that all around the world, now millions of people know about Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. So which is something which I would like to recommend you, that if you want to take one point away from this talk today, I want to request you is that just let's accept the gift which sages have left for us. They don't want to just give us these numbers. They want to give us something much more subtle, something much more important, which is love for the Lord. So that is captured and that is put together in the form of these books, the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So I request you all, accept these gifts of the sages of India and adopt them and live a life full of happiness and love. Thank you very much.